Hello, my name is Thomas Coquel, and I'm the CEO of Coquel Consulting. Welcome to our website, where you can find a lot of interesting and relevant articles about COAs. And today I will read our article number 4, From Endpoints to Evidence, How COAs, Regulatory Expectations, and Patient-Focused Development Connect. I start with the introduction. Clinical trials depend heavily on the strength of their endpoints. If endpoints are not closely aligned with how patients actually experience benefit, even a biological active treatment can fail to tell a convincing story. COAs, or clinical outcome assessments, sit at the center of this challenge because they translate patient experience into measurable outcomes that can support regulatory decisions as well as health technology assessment evaluations. This article explores how to translate abstract outcomes to robust COA-based endpoints, how regulatory expectations have evolved, and how to embed the patient's voice into an endpoint strategy. From outcomes to endpoints. Every endpoint starts with an outcome, but the two are not the same. An outcome is the change that matters in a patient's life: less pain, improved mobility, better sleep, increased participation in daily activities. An endpoint is the concrete, pre-specified measure used in a trial to quantify that outcome. Getting from one to the other requires deliberate translation work. A common mistake is to choose endpoints by starting with available instruments or legacy measures. A better approach is to work backwards from the treatment's intended benefit and the disease's impact. Identify key concepts of interest. For example, this could be ability to walk without assistance or frequency of severe migraine attacks, and then determine how to best measure them. Only at that point should teams select specific COA instruments and define how they will be analyzed. This outcome-first thinking helps ensure that the endpoint structure, primary, key secondary, and exploratory, reflects a coherent hierarchy of what matters most. It also forces alignment between clinical, statistical, regulatory, and commercial perspectives early in development, rather than during a late-stage label negotiation. Regulatory expectations for COAs. The regulators increasingly expect COA-based endpoints to be patient-relevant, conceptually sound, and supported by adequate measurement evidence. This includes clear documentation of the concept of interest and its relevance to the disease and treatment, the context of use. This is the population, the setting, timing, and mode of administration, and the instrument's validity, reliability and responsiveness, and interpretability. Authorities also emphasize that one-size-fits-all approaches are rarely appropriate. Using an instrument simply because it's widely known or easy to operationalize is no longer sufficient. Instead, sponsors are expected to show that their chosen COAs are fit for purpose for the specific indication and target population. Another important shift is the emphasis of transparency and patient involvement in instrument development and selection. Documentation of qualitative research, for example, interviews or focus groups with patients and clinicians, is now a key part of the evidence package for many COA-based endpoints. This is especially relevant when PROs are central to primary or key secondary endpoints, or when new or adapted measures are used to support labeling claims. Embedding the patient voice in endpoint strategy. Patient-focused drug development is more than a slogan. It requires tangible mechanism to ensure that patients' priorities shape the endpoint structure. COAs are primary vehicle for doing this, but they only work if a patient's input is integrated early and systematically. A practical way to begin is to ask patients and caregivers three simple questions. Number one, what are the worst aspects of living with this condition? Number two, what would a meaningful improvement look like in a daily life? And number three, what trade offs are acceptable between benefits and burden or risk? The answers should guide which concepts become central in the endpoint hierarchy and which COA types are needed to capture them. This is the PRO, the ClinRO, the OPSRO, and PAFO, and a combination, which I talk about in Article 1. In parallel, input from clinicians, nurses, and other frontline staff help to align patient priorities with clinical reality and feasibility. Co-creation workshops or advisory boards where patients, clinicians, or sponsor teams review proposed concepts and draft endpoint models together can be particularly powerful. They service misalignments early, for example, when a proposed primary endpoint misses what patients care about the most, and build credibility for the eventual evidence package. Practical steps to align COAs and trial design. Translating these principles into an actionable plan requires structured steps that link science, operations, and governance. Study teams can use the following sequence as a practical checklist. Number one, define the target treatment benefit. Start by articulating the key benefits the treatment aims to deliver in plain languages. For example, reduce the frequency of severe flare-ups or improve ability to perform daily self-care tasks. Make sure there is cross-functional agreement on this description. Number two, map concepts of interest and endpoints. Break the target benefit into specific concepts of interest, symptoms, functioning, health perceptions. Then map these to potential primary and secondary endpoint, considering the time frame, responsiveness, and clinical relevance. Check that the primary endpoint truly reflects the most important benefit. Number three, select COA types and candidate instruments. For each concept, decide who is best placed to report it. Is it the patient, clinician, an observer, or a performance task? This decision drives whether you need PROs, ClinROs, OPSROs, PAFOs, or a combination. Only then identify candidate instruments and review their evidence base and practical fit. Number four, check feasibility and burden. Evaluate the number of instruments, length of the questionnaires, and assessment of frequency and timing. Ensure that the overall COA set is realistic for patients, sites, and data collection systems. Overly burdensome schedules damage data quality and can increase missingness. Number five, align with regulatory and HTA expectations. Cross-check the proposed endpoint model and COA instruments against existing guidelines, prior approval in similar indication, and emerging best practices. Where a gap exists, plan early dialogue with authorities or scientific advice bodies. Number six, design for implementation from day one, considering licensing, translation, mode of administration, paper versus electronic COA, e-COA, training and monitoring as integral parts of the endpoint strategy, not as add-ons. Build timelines that reflect the real lead time for COA licensing and linguistic validation. Number seven, document the rationale. Capture the reasoning behind each key decision. Why were certain concepts prioritized? Why were specific instruments chosen? And how was patient input used? This documentation support internal alignment, regulatory discussions, and future label negotiations. So what are the conclusions and key takeaways from this article? Endpoints are the bridge between clinical research and real-world impact. When they are grounded in well-chosen COAs and shaped by patient input, they can convincingly demonstrate that a treatment delivers meaningful benefit. When they are misaligned with patient experience or regulatory expectation, Even strong science can fail to translate into persuasive evidence. By starting from outcomes that matter to patients, understanding the evolving expectations around COAs, and embedding patient and clinician input into endpoint strategy, sponsors can design trials that are both scientifically robust and genuinely patient focused. Treating COAs as a strategic cornerstone of trial design significantly improves the chances that trial results will resonate with regulators, payers, clinicians, and most importantly, patients. So that was the end of Article 4. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.